Hey y'all, Boy RD here. This weekend I played the Avengers beta and I'm going to give you my overall experience, what fears I have, and possible suggestions, so let's get right into it. I should also note that this is a review of only the beta, not the full game. For all I know, everything I say could be different in the full game. And to also let you know, I'm playing on the original PlayStation 4, not the Slim, not the Pro, I'm talking about the first ones that came out, so that also runs into some things about the game. Alright, let's get the obvious parts out of the way. Visually, this game is fantastic. It even has emotion in the characters' faces, the environments, the abilities, the effects of the abilities themselves. All of that is great. Each hero that you play as feels completely different, going from Hulk to Iron Man to Black Widow to Miss Marvel. 4 different experiences. One thing that is interesting about Miss Marvel, I believe it was said in an interview, is that she's learning her abilities, and well, more like her moves from the other heroes, and that does show in her gameplay. The reason I bring up those 4 particularly is because those are the main 4 that you play in the beta. You play the A-Day portion of the game, and you do play as Thor and Captain America, but you only play as them briefly, and I must say that they feel different as well, and I can't wait for Hawkeye to become part of this team. I want to see how they progress with these characters. And also a quick note, the movement between these characters are just great. It's crazy, because one thing that's interesting, like I previously said about Miss Marvel, she learns her stuff from the other heroes, but she also put her own creative flair onto it. So, Black Widow, she uses a grappling hook to traverse the area. Hulk uses his famous super thigh Hulk jumps, and Miss Marvel uses a mix of actually both of those things. When Miss Marvel sprints, she does this kind of lunge similar to, I can't say it's like a Hulk jump, but it's more like a stride with her embiggen abilities. And she uses her arm like a grappling hook, similar to how Black Widow does. Iron Man's flight, that was actually probably the most fun. I honestly did not expect the flight to feel that way. You feel so free. The difficulty I picked for the beta was hard, and let me tell you, hard, it's actually pretty hard, and I enjoy that because I expected that picking that difficulty. In the beginning, it seems like you're pretty strong, nothing can stop you, you're just swinging your hammer, throwing your shield, shooting your guns, firing your repulsor rays, until you get into the nitty-gritty of the game, particularly when I was playing as Hulk. Unfortunately, I don't have the footage, but when I was playing as him and I reached a tundra stage, I was dying left and right, over and over and over again. And that was because I was playing mindlessly like I was in the beginning. But I quickly wisened up, saying, you know what? I can't keep doing this. It is pretty hard, and when I look at the damage, I take it serious. So good on Crystal Dynamics for making the difficulty hard, at least pretty hard. I enjoy it. One thing that was a pleasant surprise about the gear is the fact that they actually come from different companies. You see one from Hammer Industries, Stark Industries, Shield. I think that's a pretty cool little, I guess you could say an Easter egg to where the heroes would get their gear from. But more importantly are the effects of the gear. So one may emit gamma radiation on every certain attack, like a light attack. But what I really found interesting was the PIM particle projector.
Hey yo, what the
Beat the hell out of him. Now moving on from gear to skill trees, the skill trees is quite dynamic between the characters. For example, each character in the beta, they had a light attack skill tree, a heavy attack skill tree, and the third one could be intrinsic, but for example with Black Widow, hers was actually a defensive tree, which included things such as being able to modify your counter, being able to improve how your grappling hook functioned. Things like that are pretty nice to see with each character. Now keeping this all in mind between the gear, the skills, and the playstyles of the character, it does create a type of synergy with these characters. And you see in some missions, it looks like some characters are more needed than others. For example, some doors had doors where it only took a Hulk smash to break them. If you didn't have a character like the Hulk, I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, but I'm assuming you would not be able to open that door. So you see that it requires you to have a dynamic team. You have to switch things up a little bit, and I like that a lot. Now, one thing that is interesting about the missions is after the missions, you have the option to rate the mission. You rate it between 1 and 5, and I enjoy that a lot. There was no option to add a comment or anything like that, but it shows that the developers are interested in how the community views the mission. Should everyone give a mission a 1 or something like that? That may make the developers change how that mission functions or take it out altogether. And that shows the kind of care that they added to the game. Other things to note are the cosmetics. I like the cosmetics. I see that they took inspiration from the comics, and I enjoy that. I kind of do hope sometime in the future there's a way for them to kind of add a cosmetic where you can change the color yourself. I think that'd be pretty dope. There's also comics to collect in the game that do improve your stats. And one more interesting thing to comment on is it seems like each character has a form of a battle pass. So when you go into the marketplace, you have the option to buy these particular emotes, these particular cosmetics. But in the battle pass, that is free, by the way. It looks like you just level it up by playing the character enough. You're gonna get enough battle pass points. And some of the cosmetics that are in the battle pass are actually in the marketplace, so it looks like you have the option to get these cosmetics for free. It does make me wonder, however, is this just an option in the beta, or is this how it's going to be in the full game? If it's like this in the full game, this is just great. Now moving on to some iffy things about the beta, the matchmaking. In the beginning, it took me so long to find someone that I opted to do one of the missions by myself. However, after this instance, I started finding people pretty fast, so I'm glad that that improved. However, there was a player who was playing Iron Man and he died. And when I tried to revive him, just getting up to where he was at was a problem because I couldn't grapple up there for some reason, even though I was right under the area where I should be able to grapple. And once I did get up there, I guess a glitch like pushed me off or something? I don't know how to explain that. But the bigger problem was, once I cleared that area and he respawned, when I tried to use a scanner to locate him, it kept saying that he was like negative 2 million meters away. So I couldn't find him unless he was right in front of me and I seen his outline. That is a big problem, and I hope that is fixed before the full game launches. This isn't the first big glitch that I encountered. There was an enemy that I was actually trying to knock off the map as Kamala Khan, but it jumped and it got stuck in the wall and I wasn't able to hit it, and I was stuck in that portion of the level until I actually found a way to hit it. It took me to use my ult next to it for me to actually clear that enemy, and I hope that's fixed as well, because if there's other levels like this and enemies get stuck in walls and it takes a whole ult to clear, that definitely is a problem. Moving on into cons, let's start with the companion AI. Even after multiplayer was open to me to play, I decided to play more of the beta in single player. I just wanted to understand how it felt playing single player, if it still felt like I had an effective team with the companion AI. And overall, it worked average. The companion AI does fight well. It doesn't continuously die over and over again. However, it does tend to do its own thing. For example, there was a mission where we have to hold certain points until we got the objective to 100%. I fell during the fight and the companion AI would come and pick me up. So that is a plus. If you fall during the fight, it will help you. However, they did not help at all capturing the point. In fact, they kind of seemed like a hindrance. I had to run to each point over and over and over, and I lost the first time I tried. And once I understood this, I did succeed the second time, but once again, the companion AI just kept fighting, doing its own thing. I think one thing that can improve this is a command system for the companion AI. I can't think of games off the top of my head, but there are games where you can tell the AI to attack here, defend here, hold this point, I need assistance, something like that with this companion AI, because it seriously lacks direction. There's also points where the AI was actually stuck because it seen me go turn a corner, but it continuously ran straight, and I had to go back, move to a different side so the AI would follow me and move like around a tree that it was stuck on. There is a mission where it's like a boss battle and you're gonna have to fight this giant boss. The idea seems cool, The level looks pretty nice, but man, the frames do drop. That's why in the beginning I mentioned that I have an original PS4, because I'd like to know what your experience is if you played the beta and you have a different PS4 than I have. Maybe it's because I have an older model. But the frames, they dropped for me. If I had to give an overall percentage of the beta, I'd say 75 to 80% of it was smooth. I did not experience huge frame drops or frame drops at all, but most of the frame drops were definitely on this level here. And also the boss itself, it kind of felt clunky. Like I'm trying to grapple onto it and I'm kind of stuck in a glitch where it looks like I'm falling. I eventually do fall out, but it seems like you can't use certain characters for this. Well, you can, but prepare to be in for the fight of your life because it is difficult getting onto that boss and staying on. Earlier, I did mention that it's nice that we have the option to rate missions, and while I was playing the beta, I had fun playing these missions. However, afterwards, when I think about it, the missions kind of felt the same. And I'm not sure if I blame that on the beta because they can't give us too much of the story, or it's actually like this. Basically, you run in, you smash stuff, and then you leave. I just didn't feel an impact of the missions, so I wouldn't say this is necessarily a con. It's more like something we have to wait for once the full game releases. I'd say if I had to rate the missions themselves, I'd give them like a solid 7. Maybe an 8 actually. I'd give them an 8. Regarding the missions, I actually would like to ask people that play RPGs often, is it kind of regular for your missions to feel repetitive? I understand that is a grind, and I don't play RPGs too often. I play a lot of fighting games, but as far as missions go, I would like to know your opinion on this. Now to move on to suggestions, and we're going to get the elephant in the room immediately. Spider-Man. Spider-Man being an exclusive is a bigger problem than some may think. It's more than him just being on that console. It actually writes off the possibility of crossplay, in my opinion. I hope that I am wrong later on in the future, but it doesn't seem like Sony is trying to play with other consoles/systems at the moment. What I am hoping is that Spider-Man is possibly a timed exclusive. And one thing I wonder is, if you do not own a PlayStation, would you be open to paying for Spider-Man? Would you be open to paying for something that's free on another console? Me personally, I'm really not sure if I would, but it's really messed up. One thing I looked up for this review was the relationship between Marvel and Sony, and I know that Sony has the rights to Spider-Man in the movies, and as far as I know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it only exists in the movies. There hasn't been anything that says Sony can use Spider-Man in all entertainment wherever they want. It's just movies. And maybe this is Sony's end of the bargain for all I know. Since Sony technically does own the rights to Spider-Man, they are allowing him to be in the MCU. Maybe they have the option to keep him exclusively on PlayStation. And the reason I say option is because Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 came out, and not only did it have Peter Parker Spider-Man, but it had Miles Morales Spider-Man, and Venom, and Ghost Spider. However, I don't know this for a fact. I don't want people to think that this is straight up knowledge. This is just me speculating. There hasn't been anything, at least as far as I've seen, saying Sony owns this. And if there is, please comment it down below so that it can kind of shed a light onto why this keeps happening with Spider-Man. Another thing that could pose a problem for Spider-Man being exclusive is earlier the marketing for this game was not that great. For all the info that I've been getting over these past months, I've been getting it from random black gamer and his videos. It seemed like the marketing for this game early on, it was not that great. So just imagine if you're someone who briefly remembered this game and the first thing you hear is that Spider-Man is an exclusive on PlayStation and you own a PC, you're probably not even gonna want the game. So it splits the player base even more. Exclusives going as far as particular characters for consoles and gaming seems kind of old to me now that I mention it. Like I previously mentioned, I played a lot of fighting games, and I remember when Soul Calibur 2, PlayStation had Heihachi. I believe GameCube had Link and Xbox had Spawn. Mortal Kombat 9. If you had a PlayStation 3, you got Kratos. Street Fighter X Tekken. I don't want to say this for sure, but I think PlayStation had Cole, and I don't know if he was available on other consoles. Overall, I'm just hoping that it's just a timed exclusive, because we also have to remember that this is a new IP that's starting as well. The Avengers is a well-known team, especially thanks to the movies. However, like I previously mentioned, the marketing early on hasn't been that great, and if you haven't been keeping up with the game, and the first thing you see is Spider-Man being an exclusive, that could be a good or bad thing depending on who you're talking to. I think the game needs to see a huge surge in marketing very soon, because the open beta for PlayStation 4 starts August 14th, which is also when those who pre-ordered PC and Xbox can play. On August 21st, the open beta for PC and Xbox begins. The reason I'm saying this is because even though I'm critical on aspects of the game, I do want it to do well, and I want to make sure everyone has a chance to play the game if they are interested. Another thing that's pretty important for the game, as we've kept saying over and over again, are the heroes. That's the biggest aspect of the game, and we all know that there's a pretty good chance that characters like Captain Marvel, Falcon, etc. will be involved in the game. Recently, Hawkeye was even announced as DLC. Another option for DLC is possibly Venom, and I hope he's available to all consoles if he does end up being part of the game, because in the comics they offered the position of being an Avenger to Eddie Brock, who is the current host of the Venom symbiote. His gameplay would be so exciting. For example, they could have the incarnation of him after his battle with Null and have the option to fly. By the way, Venom can fly now. He could upgrade his movement to flight similar to how Black Widow upgraded her grappling ability. He could also have a sword, because in the comics he made a sword of symbiote juice. I don't know what that stuff is, but he made a sword. It was awesome. So that could be a weapon he equips that he can switch like Black Widow switches her guns. Or maybe he can just morph his body into different weapons. The possibilities are endless. Other interesting choices could be Ghost Rider, Nova, Vision, and Doctor Strange, although there's a pretty good chance they'll be included later because they're part of the MCU's team. Even other X-Men characters like Storm. And also keep in mind, everyone that I've mentioned here were actually part of the Avengers at one point. Overall, I give the beta about a 7.5 out of 10. The bugs, the frame drops on certain levels, and the companion AI are a problem, but the biggest issue here is a preferential treatment towards Sony. I believe it isn't Crystal Dynamics at fault here, and they're only doing what they can. I do hope this changes in the future, however, because I have high hopes for this game, and Crystal Dynamics is doing a wonderful job at giving their own take on the Avengers. The options they have for the game are endless, and after playing the beta, they definitely proved that they are up to the challenge. Don't forget to like, to dislike, and consider subscribing. Let me know what you think in the comments below.